So why is it taking so long to spot the wreckage of the aircraft even 2 days after it was reported missing? Well, there are a couple of factors that need to be taken into account here. Factor number one is the area in which the aircraft has gone missing. Authorities have narrowed down the so-called crash zone to Arunachal's Along Payum Tato area. The area, as you can see on your screens right now, is hilly and has a dense forest. The pine trees in this area are as tall as 100 feet. Now, carrying out a search operation in this area can be really difficult. To top it all, this area almost always is covered with clouds. Now, Indian authorities have deployed the RESAT satellite and Sukhoi S-30s in the area. The RESAT can easily see through cloud and can even scan a region at night, but neither the RESAT nor the Sukhoi 30 can penetrate a canopy of trees. This means that the authorities are relying heavily on ground search operation. But scanning an area as large as this, that too one with a really difficult terrain, is far from easy. It'll take weeks for search parties to cover the entire area by foot, and locals will have to be involved actively. The second factor that is delaying the search operation: missing AN-32 does not have modern avionics, radars or emergency locator transmitters. The emergency locator transmitter of the aircraft has a limited battery life and no distress signal has been received yet. Now, these problems are keeping the authorities from further narrowing down the crash zone. All right, joining me live for more on this developing story is my guest, Air Marshal Anil Chopra, retired of the Indian Air Force. Air Marshal Chopra, thank you so much for joining us on WION World is One. First up, in your assessment, what would you attribute this delay in locating the wreckage to? Is it technology versus terrain?
I must tell you that I have done extensive amount of flying in this area. I've had 2 postings in the east. I've also flown the AN-32 aircraft. And the search and rescue in the thick jungles of Arunachal is a very, very complex exercise. And we have known this for last 60 to 70 years. Air maintenance is required because the army has to be maintained. And therefore, there has to be continuous flying by transport aircraft and helicopters in the area. Now, as you just mentioned, the ravines are very steep, the trees are very tall, the vegetation is very thick. If somebody was to walk through this jungle, it may take about 1 hour to cross just 100 meters. That is the kind of thickness of the jungle that is over there. And now look at the technology. See, the first thing the Indian Air Force did was use the Su-30. Su-30 has got an Israeli pod which has got a synthetic aperture radar which can see the area with high degree of accuracy. Unfortunately, if the wreckage is lying buried deep under the trees, then there is a limitation for this. Immediately after that, a C-130 was used, which is also having similar SAR capability. The RESAT satellites, which are radar-based satellites, are also being used. Of course, the satellite has a limitation of dwell time. It has to be physically, the cameras have to be focusing in that area. The P8I has been brought in, though it is more, specialized for oceans and seas, but even that has got equipment with that could use. But and not only that, the local helicopters and transport aircraft are also being used. But I think what is going to matter is also how the Indian Army, the other, the local police and the civilian population. Because in the past, in many such accidents, we have found that they are the ones, some of the shepherds, some of the other people who live in the jungles, they are the people who will normally report. And 48 hours is quite a bit of time. Yesterday, of course, the weather was bad, and that also caused certain amount of loss. 1 or 2 points about the modernization. Yes, the AN-32 is being upgraded. In the upgrade, a few things which would have been of great help. One is the weather radar. If a modern weather radar had been there, the aircraft would have been able to negotiate the weather better. The new upgraded aircraft will also have the ground proximity warning system. That would have been of great help in the mountains, because if you are going closer to the terrain, you would have got a warning and you would have done something about it. Also, the upgrade brings in a new GPS. These are some of the AN multifunction displays and many other things that the upgrade brings. Unfortunately, the upgrade has been moving very slowly. Nearly 100 aircraft have to be upgraded, and only about 46, 48 aircraft, I believe, have been upgraded. It would be a good idea for the Indian Air Force to some point consider that for such mountains and in such weather, maybe they would like to move some of the upgraded aircraft into the east and, of course, for Leh and Ladakh.
All right, so you make some valid points there, Air Marshal Chopra, but I'm told that you also conducted several sorties in Mechuka. You've landed in Mechuka several times, and you're familiar with the terrain there. Explain to our viewers what it feels like to land and take off from Mechuka.
You know, you already know that just a few months earlier, the C-17 has landed at Mechuka. You know, there are 8 major ALGs in the northeast. In Arunachal, all 8 have been upgraded. Wherever it was possible to lengthen the runways, they have been lengthened. Modern navigation aids have been provided, and the runways itself have been strengthened. So today, as far as the upgradation of the advanced landing grounds, which Mechuka is one of them, which is just 28 kilometers from the Indo-Tibet border, the ground situation is relatively good. And the AN-32, you know, basically replaced the old aeroplanes like the Dakota and Caribou, which used to fly in the mountains. And the AN-32 is a workhorse of the Indian Air Force, an ideal aircraft to take on the type of exercise they have been doing for so many years. So the lay of the land is good, but en route, you know, till about 20 kilometers short of Mechuka and maybe 100 kilometers from Jorhat, this region, you have to pass through valleys which have got high mountains on the sides and thick jungles. And of course, we know that on that particular day, there was cloudy weather in that area, and if there is clouds and mountains, there are the inherent risks that aviation has to face in that area.
Air Marshal Chopra, 10 crashes in 33 years. Also, the last crash by an AN-32 was in 2016 in the Bay of Bengal. You think that's a decent track record for the AN-32? Also, any lessons learned from the 2016 crash in particular?
Yeah, you see, yes, 2016 crash in Bay of Bengal, nearly 30 people, personnel on board, going from Chennai to Port Blair. Bad weather en route. After days and days and months of search, finally the Indian Air Force had to call off that search because you know, there was no means of carrying on searching because the area was so vast and it was so unknown, and even the Indian Navy ships had actively participated. Some of the foreign countries had also offered help. But I must tell you that overall track record of the AN-32 has not been too bad. Certainly there have not been any technical failures per se, though the aircraft is old. It got inducted in 1984. But certainly the aircraft required an upgrade, and the upgrade is moving slow. And the reason for upgrade moving slowly is because Ukraine is doing it, and Ukraine and Russia used to be one country during Soviet Union time, and AN-32 used to be their product. And after and last year, when Crimea also got taken away by these Russians, the various plants that handled AN-32 got split, and therefore this whole upgrade has been a little slow, not little, quite slow, and that is something which is worrying. In any case, the transport fleet is desperately waiting for replacements. The AN-32 came in 1984. The Avros, which came in 1960s, they are waiting replacement, 56 of them. And the new aircraft, which is supposed to come, the C295 CASA Airbus, that is supposed to be much more modern. 56 of them will come, and they will be able to carry more tonnage. You know, presently AN-32 can carry only 6.7 tons, but the C295 can carry 9.4, 9.5 tons, and will have absolutely modern avionics. and we hope that part of the load that the AN-32 used to take will be taken away by the C-295. But unfortunately, the country is still to take a call, and we have to still to sign any contract. And it is my request, and I urge that the government must look at this aspect very, very quickly, both these issues of the average replacement and the quickening of the upgrade of the AN-32.
All right, and very finally, Air Marshal Chopra, correct me if I'm wrong, but very few countries in the world today fly an AN-32. In your estimation, is the AN-32 become outdated and should be retired from service?
You see, undoubtedly, because AN-32 was an aircraft which was specially designed and built for India. Why for India? Because we have very peculiar conditions. We have high temperatures in our country, and we have got very high landing grounds. AN-32 is expected to land at 10,000-12,000 feet. And at that height, it should be able to, especially in summer, be able to carry enough troops and enough materials and cargo. So the aircraft was designed specially for the Indian Air Force by modifying the AN-26 by giving it more powerful engines and also making some other design changes. So the aircraft has done well. But we cannot continue to fly this aircraft because in times to come we will be running out of spares. The spare chain is already not so good. The percentage serviceability is also getting affected. So therefore there is a need to look at AN-32 replacement very, very quickly. But mind you, we have got 100 aircraft. That's a large fleet. And it is also important to find means to sustain this fleet after it has got upgraded in the coming year or so.
Right. Air Marshal Chopra, I have one more question to ask of you. Now, talking about technology versus terrain. Now, in your estimation, is it true, correct me if I'm wrong, that radars can see through the cloud cover, but they can't penetrate the canopy, the forest cover? Is that true?
Yes. Let me tell you that technology versus terrain, among all the accidents that take place around the world, whether it's military or civilians, controlled flight into ground is one of the, into terrain is one of the major causes of accidents, and a large number of systems, the terrain avoidance radars, the terrain warning radars, they are being introduced in a large number of aircraft around the world, and including it would have come in the upgrade for the AN-32. So as far as radar is concerned, of course it can see through clouds, but some radars can't see through some very, very thick cumulonimbus clouds. But by and large, the radars can see through the clouds. But thick foliage, it is like expecting you to see through a concrete building. So the technologies required are still evolving for this. And the Assam and Arunachal jungles are so thick that it's like expecting the radar waves to penetrate a building. So it is.